Hi, welcome to How To with J and A. I just wanted to make this video just to help people on the Slimming World diet plan and any other low calorie diet. It was just to give you some ideas of the best choices to make on Christmas Day itself and also round about the holiday season. So I know a lot of people do attend classes, and Christmas is a great time to get some really good information at the classes. There's lots of up-to-date recipes and ideas that people share when you do attend a class. But I know that some people are trying to follow it from other countries where they can't attend a class, or they're using an app or social media. So I really hope that this video helps you just get some good ideas for the holiday season. So when you're on your own in a social setting, sometimes you can start to get a wee bit worried about the choices that you're making and also the food that's been offered to you. So the idea of this video today is just to give you some good pointers to keep making the right choices while following the Slimming World plan. And it's not meant to just make you feel bad. It's really meant to take away that sort of worry and concern about breaking your diet, and especially people that have done really well. They can be really worried at this time of year that they will take a huge step back. And I just want to encourage you, you don't have to take a big step back. Maybe you might stay still and not lose weight, but I would encourage you that that's a really good option as opposed to actually gaining a lot of weight over Christmas. So one of the first things I would say is just try and share with others how you're feeling if you feel that's appropriate. Sometimes it's not, but if it is family or friends, you can just say to them, look, I've done really well on my diet and I'm really not wanting to blow it all on just a few days of food. I did actually count my calories one Christmas and realised that in one single day I'd had double the amount of the recommended calories, and it wasn't really worth it, some of the things that I ate. So it's really good just to say to people, or if you don't want to say up front, then just work out beforehand exactly what kinds of foods you feel comfortable eating and not feel embarrassed or upset. Just go with the flow. Don't worry if you just feel like you just want to eat anything you fancy on the day, but this is just some ideas just to help you along the way. So I just want to go through each dish of the Christmas meal, and this is starters. So first of all, I would say that soup is a really good starter if you are able to choose soup, or especially if you're making a dish yourself. I know that some families have a tradition where everybody brings a dish, and I would say to you, soup is great. Personally, I'm not keen on soup as part of a meal because I find that it makes me feel too full. But then if you think that's actually quite a good thing, and sometimes if it's just a few people that's having Christmas, what I would do is I would just have soup and then maybe wait like an hour or so, maybe open presents or watch something on the TV and just have a wee break and actually make that sort of like a sort of part of the day, not just like, everybody sitting down at the table and eating. But older people love soup. It's quite a traditional starter. So I would say soups, you know yourself, the good recipes that you can find, and there's lots of really healthy vegetable recipes. So very low in sins or sin-free. There's hundreds of sin-free recipes out there. So I would just say soup's a good choice. So a salad is a really good option. It's quite light, especially if you're going to be having a heavy meal for your main course. So I would suggest that this could be quite a good option, and you could serve that with some bread, some wholemeal bread, and if you didn't want to take the bread and just stick to the lighter salad, then that would suit well. Now, I was thinking about making this video, and I was thinking for those of you who grew up in the sort of 80s and 90s, melon was quite often a starter in a restaurant. And some people now might be thinking, how do people just eat some melon? But quite often, starters were very light. And the idea of a starter is to just start your digestive sort of juices, starting them to activate so you can digest your food easier. So quite often people had very light starters. They had soup, fruit juice or melon was very, very common. There's a few restaurants where I grew up, and especially Italian restaurants, that was your option, and there really wasn't a lot of other choice. But I would say you can pair it with some other things, but even just some nice fresh melon, you could buy different kinds, different colours, and maybe sort of dress it up a bit. But that could be a good option as well, and completely sin-free. So a salmon salad or prawn cocktail, these are both really good standard starters, and they're nice and light, again, not very heavy, but they're really tasty and you get a lot of flavour packed into your salad. Just remember not to use heavy salad dressings. But I would say this is also a really nice option. Some nice grilled fish is also really nice. Again, this is a salmon portion that I've got here, but this could be grilled prawns or fish, and you can put quite a lot of seasoning on that if you want something just a bit different, something a bit spicy, then this is a nice option and again, quite healthy. So on to the main dish. So I know a lot of people will have turkey, and there's also vegetarians and vegans that will have vegetarian or vegan dishes made from vegetables or sort of lentil type dishes as well. I was a vegetarian when I was younger for quite a few years, and I used to have like a nut roast or something for my Christmas dinner. But I would say that the basics are that the meat itself is actually normally really low in sins and quite healthy for you. So I wouldn't worry too much about your turkey. I would try not to add too much butter. And a really good tip for keeping the breast meat nice and moist is to turn it over and cook it upside down. And what that does is all the juices that run out will actually sort of baste the turkey as it cooks. So the good news is that most side dishes for your main meal are going to be actually quite healthy depending on how you prepare them. So obviously there's some red flags, and I would say red flags are pigs in blankets. They're quite high in calories normally, unless you can get a really good low-fat sausage, which you can do nowadays. But again, streaky bacon does tend to be higher in fat, and back bacon doesn't really work because it just dries out. So I would say just try and limit how many cocktail sausages that you munch on the day. But most of the other dishes are really actually quite healthy. So you can just just get a quick picture, and things like green beans, mixed vegetables, things like braised cabbage, Brussels sprouts. And again, you've heard me talk before, we do need healthy fats in our diet. So I would say, although you're not wanting to add an awful lot of like butter or rich oils, I would say just a little can really help with the taste. And also flavouring with maybe some herbs or some seasoning can help as well if you're worried about them being bland. One idea that I had was really if you wanted to serve the vegetables at individual side portions, and that means that if you had other people that weren't on a diet, you could maybe put more butter or more oil or whatever when you're cooking those vegetables, and then you could have a sort of fresher version without as much fat. So gravy is always a hot topic in social media for Slimming World. A lot of people get really worried about the amount of calories in gravy, and if you do use the juice from the turkey, it can be quite high because a lot of the fat will come out of the skin, it will render down and it will go into the juice. But quite often you can pour your juice into a pan and you can let it cool slightly, and you can use like a paper towel just to sort of soak up some of the grease. Sometimes you just skim it off with a spoon, and that will then leave your gravy not so fattening. And the other thing is that I would say that if you are using a packet mix or packet gravy, again, they can be quite high, and unfortunately high in palm oil, which we all know isn't really good for you. So not only is it high in fat, but it's high in palm oil. So there's other ways that you can make gravy. You can just use stock cubes with some of your meat juices, and you can make like a thin watery like jus, and then you can thicken at the end with some corn flour, and that is a healthier way to make gravy because you don't actually add in as much fat, and you're also not having a lot of preservatives. And the other thing that you can do is just again limit the amount. So this picture, obviously there's tons of gravy, but you don't have to have as much and you can still enjoy your meal. So just to recap, I would suggest lots of fresh veg, not so much gravy, lots of meat if you like to have meat, or lots of your main course, whichever you're having, as long as it's not too high in calories. And you can also have some roast veg, some roast potatoes. I would say the air fryer roast potatoes is a really good idea, or just lightly covering your roast potatoes in oil, just tossing them in oil before you roast them up in the pan. Certainly, deep fried roast potatoes are going to be the highest calorie food probably on your plate for your Christmas lunch, as well as the sausages. So if you can try and limit those things, try and provide some nice new potatoes. Again, a little bit of butter on new potatoes, you'll find will be a lot less sins than having roast potatoes. But obviously, it is Christmas Day and I want you to enjoy your meal. So on to dessert, and dessert's probably the place where there's going to be quite high fat and a lot of sugar. Now, if you have been following Slimming World quite strict, you will find that having a lot of sugar will probably make you feel a bit rough and will probably sometimes give you a sort of headache or a bit of an upset tummy if you're having a lot of rich food when you've been on a strict diet. So what I would say is try and limit whatever you choose. And I would also say if you try and just choose something that you really enjoy and just go for that. Here's some options here, and they're just little pots, and this can be a nice way to give people a choice of having some different dishes to try. And you can work on making some of these really low fat, low calorie and low sugar. So you can use some sweetener or some healthy sugar alternatives, and you can just make up some options to also have along with maybe like chocolate gateau or the traditional steamed Christmas pudding. So one of the things that I really enjoy at Christmas is a really nice pavlova, and I tend to use a cream alternative for that. But I would say, as I said a minute ago, try and choose something that you really enjoy, and if it is a lot of calories, then just think that as I said the other day in my other video, sometimes the body actually benefits from a bit of a sort of like boost of intake of calories just to kickstart your metabolism. So as long as you try and make something that you won't eat lots and lots of, I would suggest that if you are just cooking for a few people, if you just scale down some recipes, sometimes there's really handy sort of measurement guides at the side of a recipe, and you can just half the recipe and you don't need to make lots and lots of something that you're going to eat. But I would say really try and enjoy yourself. You've done well getting to where you've gotten just now, so make something nice, make something you enjoy, and make it really tasty. The other thing that's always floating around on Christmas Day is lots of chocolate. And again, it might be a good idea just to say to relatives, look, I can't take a lot of chocolate at the moment because I am trying to like keep my weight down or try and lose weight. But if you do have chocolates around, as I say, some people just have lots of family and it's there anyway. But I would say try and just be mindful of how much you're eating. Sometimes, especially if you're stressed in the kitchen, you're cooking, you can be having a wee glass of wine and you just start to eat lots of bits and pieces. So I would just try and limit chocolate just to try and eat the things that you sort of remember what you're eating, if that makes sense. So people talk about mindful eating. So if you just try and have a few nice chocolates, I like chocolate with coffee. So if you have, if you have a wee break or things are quiet in the evening, you just have a nice coffee. Try and just have a few chocolates that you really enjoy, and just take your time over them. But try not just to sort of eat as you go along all day. Mince pies are another thing that are always on the go, and again, because they're using pastry, they are quite high in fat, which makes them high in calories, but they're also very, very high in sugar. So there's actually some health benefits to sultanas and dried fruit, which they have now discovered. So way back, sort of like 70s and 80s, they saw dried fruit as being really healthy. And then about the last sort of 10-15 years, it became really sort of outlawed as the worst thing you could possibly eat because it is just a lot of sugar. But they have now actually turned everything back in its head and said that there are actually some components of dried fruit which actually make them quite healthy for your body. So it's all quite interesting, but in the form of a mince pie, you will find with all the sort of sugar that's coating the dried fruit and the pastry, they do end up very high in sugar and very high in calories. So I actually half my mince pies, which does seem a bit sad. But the other day we were in a shop and they had mini mince pies. So I thought, oh, well, I could buy the mini ones and that'll save me some money. And then I picked up the box and thought, it's quite a light box. And I actually checked. And although the mini ones were the same price as the normal sized ones, they were actually half the amount of product inside the box. So I would say if you don't mind spending the extra money, buy the mini ones, and then you can just have a mini one with a coffee, as you know, just as you're going along the day. But the other thing you can do is just literally cut it in half, eat half at one point, and then eat half at another point, or just give the other half away. A good way to ensure that you're not eating a lot of food over a couple of days is also just to freeze some of your food. So it might be a good idea just to freeze up some of the turkey or whatever it is you made just to eat at a later date. It is advisable that you don't freeze food for a long time. So fresh meat fresh meat that you've cooked would really just last in the fridge up to about sort of 4 to 6 weeks. So just bear that in mind that although there's lots of people saying, oh, you can batch cook and things, frozen food isn't really supposed to be kept for a long time unless it's made in factory conditions. So a good tip is really just to do your homework, and it may seem like a bit of work, but if you're just watching the TV at night or just got some time out during your day, you can just spend some time. You can use apps, you can use magazines, and you can just do a bit of research and just get the latest ideas for recipes and the latest just advice from Slimming World as well. And I would say use your app or use any sort of groups that you link in with just to get a quick chat and just to help you just stay on track. Recipe books are really good to keep at hand as well. And maybe if you want to ask for a late present, maybe someone could give you one, or you might get some money for Christmas and it might be really worth investing in some of the books. So I'm not affiliated to Slimming World in any way, but I would suggest that you pick up maybe some of the Slimming World books. I've got some books I've picked up over the years, and there's also a pinch of Nom, and that's very popular. They used to put Slimming World sins onto their recipes, but there was some sort of discussion over that, and they don't do that anymore. So just be aware of that. But most of their recipes are very low in sins and low calorie and low fat. So lots of people love using their recipes as well as Slimming World. And obviously there's other good healthy eating books as well. So I really hope that that's been just a quick overview that might be helpful to you on your Slimming World journey. The best thing that I can say to you is really enjoy yourself, have fun, don't worry, don't overthink things, and don't stress. But it's really good. A lot of the Slimming World and good diet programs just teach you to have a wee bit of foresight and just to think about things before you go. Say you were going out for a meal with friends, you could just have a wee look at the restaurant's menu online and just have a wee think when you're not got the pressure of chatting to other people and maybe a few drinks. Just sort of think what kind of foods would be really quite healthy and a good option. There are really good options for most places these days, and you can also quite often ask for something to be customised. So you can ask for things to be swapped out, like you can swap your chips for potatoes or different things like that. So try just to relax, enjoy yourself, and I hope that you do have a really Merry Christmas.